Welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of Life Beyond Loss, the podcast. This is a guest show where we share just the most amazing and inspirational stories of people navigating their grief and loss through to often their healing and transformation too. I'm your host, Louise Kresick, grief and loss coach, and in this episode, digital media whiz Clare Clifford talks very candidly about her loss, and I want to let you know that this is a very deep and raw and honest discussion about the loss of her child Charlotte. In this episode, Clare describes the circumstances around her tragic loss and the events that sort of unfolded in the days and weeks and months afterwards. We highlight the importance of the fact that we need to talk more openly about grief and in particular child loss. And Clare shares some lovely tips on how best to survive the early days after such a loss. There's loads more I could say about this episode, but I really want you to go ahead and listen in because Clare just says it all perfectly. So stay tuned. Onto today's show by Clare See, I've messed it up already, Clare. Clare Clifford. Clare Clifford, who is owner of Sunshine Digital Media. So welcome to the show, Clare. If I can bring a sentence together today. Welcome. Whereabouts are you in the UK?
I'm in Leeds in Yorkshire.
Oh, okay. So way up north. Well, from me anyway, way up north.
Yeah, from you, but there is life further north than Yorkshire.
Really?
Yeah.
So let's just tell the listeners then, who you are, just a bit about what you do and, what Sunshine Digital Media is.
Sunshine Digital Media is, I'm basically a digital media marketing specialist. I work with lots of businesses on their social media and digital content, basically to help you reach the right customers and have good, interesting content as well, and regular content. So that's me, really, in a nutshell, what I do. I'm a digital media whiz.
Ooh, digital media whiz, I like that. That's a good description, isn't it? And yeah. I know, because obviously we've had a chat before, and we've talked we talked quite in depth, didn't we, I guess, about, your story of loss. But I know that the name of your business, Sunshine Digital Media, has a lot of meaning for you, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Basically, it's named after the reason you're speaking to me is that I lost my daughter Charlotte, and she throughout her life was my sunshine, and Sunshine Digital Media was set up less than 3 months after Charlotte's death, and that's why I wanted to dedicate it to her. So the reason behind the name isn't really that sunny at all, but that's where it's come from, basically, because she was my sunshine, and I wanted to do something positive for her in her name that would make her proud of her mummy.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. I just love that that sentiment, really. And I'm just wondering if you'd be okay just to share, just as much as you feel comfortable, really, a little bit about your story and about your loss. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I have a daughter, Layla. She's now 7. She was 5 at the time that Charlotte was born. Charlotte arrived in very dramatic style. I told my partner he needed to come home quickly from work because something was happening. And he got home to me on speakerphone to a 999 operator, and about 30 seconds after he walked through the door, delivered her on the living room floor. So it was all very dramatic. She was an amazing baby, and we very much felt our family unit was complete. And she was just so chilled, and I think I'd always said to my husband and to friends, she's just, compared to my first, she's just too good to be true. She's so laid back, she's so sunny and smiley and happy, and it continued that way. I worked for myself for several years, but just doing, I kind of been approached to do things, and actually my main client I was supposed to go back to after 10 weeks after having Charlotte, and they said they no longer needed me. So I ended up having an unplanned maternity leave, but I was quite pleased about that. On the Saturday the 17th of June, we went out for a lovely day with both my girls and some friends. We had a picnic at a place called Lugton Hall. It was an absolutely boiling hot day, but we had a wonderful day. Came home, put my girls to bed, and sat outside with my partner in the sunshine and had a few drinks. And this is the bit where I will just add, it was probably about 4 throughout a 6-hour period. As I was going to bed around 11, 12 o'clock that night, Charlotte was, she was whining, she was grumbling, she was uncomfortable. So I gave her a bottle of milk, and I gave it to her in my bed because that was the coolest room in the house, and it was such a hot night. And she had the milk and fell asleep. I then went to sleep next to her. I thought, I won't move her because it's cooler in here. And she'd been getting a tooth and she was fractious. So it just seemed like the right thing to do, and something I'd done many times before. 4 hours later, on the 18th of June, which was Father's Day, I woke up to her lifeless body next to me in the bed. And then just really began a nightmare. I had to perform CPR. My partner was asleep in the spare room because Charlotte was in with me, and the ambulance arrived within seconds, and we were rushed to hospital, and she was pronounced dead. Our house became a crime scene. The police arrived. I was interviewed, and I was very honest about the fact they asked me had I consumed any alcohol, and I said that I had. They said they needed to do a blood test. And after waiting 5 hours for someone to come and perform this blood test, while my eldest daughter was with a neighbour, we were told by the police, look, we do want to take this blood, but it is voluntary. You can leave if you want. So we left. Couldn't get back into our house for the rest of the day because, as I say, it was classed as a crime scene until they'd ruled certain things out. And because they didn't do a blood test, they weren't able to determine how much alcohol I consumed, and therefore I was interviewed under caution because of the 1933 intoxicated layover law. Basically, if it had been proven that I had laid on Charlotte, I could have been sent to prison for manslaughter. And it took them 6 months to have a post-mortem performed and get the report written up to be able to say that I wasn't responsible for Charlotte's death. I always knew in my gut that I wasn't, because of the way we fell asleep, and it was something we did on a regular basis. But when the powers that be are saying to you time and time again, you could have done this, you could have done this, it was just horrendous. So I had 6 months of that, and it's just really it's like when something really bad happens in life, people have always said it's like being in a dream, and it was just a dream. I couldn't believe it was happening. It's literally the little things you worry about, like, oh, am I going to fit into that dress for the wedding I'm going to in a couple of weeks? Or I haven't got work at the moment. How much longer can I push it before I've got to find work? Can I afford to buy these shoes? And then the little things. I was one of life's worriers about the slightest things. And then something I didn't even see coming happened and smacked me in the face and knocked me over.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much for, being open and honest and sharing that bit of, that story, because it's so important. And I know that there will be people out there who may have been through, a similar experience, and it's not something, is it, that probably isn't talked about that often.
It isn't, and I think it's something, when we spoke the other day, that one of the main reasons why I want to talk about this is because the amount of people who have come to me since I lost Charlotte and said, oh, my mum would like to speak to you if you need help. She lost a child back in the 70s, the 80s. Or my grandma lost one and she was just told to get on with it, and has never spoken to me about it until I've told her about you, and that kind of thing. Or a lady I met the other week, her baby died at 3 weeks old because of an undiagnosed heart defect. And that was 13 years ago, and she still had tears in her eyes when she told me about it. And it's something that, unless it's happened to you, you really can't understand. But it happens, and we should be allowed to talk about it. Grief shouldn't be such a taboo. Obviously, it's the last thing you want to think about is your child dying, but it does happen. And people should be able to talk about it. And I think by talking about it to my friends and family and letting them know what I need from them has helped them as well. So yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about it, really.
Yeah, I feel like talking about these things, about our grief, about our experiences of loss, is also quite a healing experience. Yeah. It's part of the healing of that process. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I blogged a lot throughout the process as well, because I found that to talk about how I was feeling, to write it down, was helpful. But also because I was getting, in the couple of weeks after her death, I was getting a couple, like 5 or 6 messages an hour about people well-meaning but wanting to know how I was. And I found the blog was almost like kind of like a news wall. This is how I am, this is what I need, I appreciate your concern, but I can't keep up to this.
Yeah,
I need a bit of space. Don't think I'm being rude. This is what's happening. And it seemed to work quite well in that respect.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how did you kind of go about navigating your loss then? And obviously it sounds like, the writing and the blogging was one aspect of that, that really helped you. Is there anything else that kind of springs to mind that really helped you just to navigate what you were going through?
At the time, I was very lucky that I have an extremely close friend who I've known for a quarter of a century, who just kind of, she left her own family for a couple of weeks and actually just came up and pretty much moved in with me, and she arranged the funeral and took care of Layla and me, and just, I don't know, just there was food in my fridge and I don't know how it got there. So I think it's letting people do things for you. I'm not very good. I'm a bit of a control freak, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I work alone rather than have a team, because I like to do things myself. I like to be accountable for things myself, and sort of letting go and letting somebody else take over, rather than having to do it all yourself is something that really helped. If you can get through that day, each day, just get through it. That's all you need to do. Don't think I need to do this, I need to do that. Those first few weeks, just breathe. And if you can eat something along the way and maybe go for a walk, do that. But I wouldn't say in those first few months that anything really can help other than just focusing on getting through each day.
Yeah, just that I describe it as almost like that survival period, really, just putting one foot in front of the other. Exactly. And sometimes even, people struggle with even the most basic of things, just getting out of bed, getting a shower. And if you manage to do that in a day, then that's a win.
Yeah, I mean, I was something that I look back on, which sounds really trivial, but that now I really am eternally grateful to this lady. She, my hairdresser slash beautician, who I've been going to for a long time, she would kind of come and get me, or make me come in every couple of weeks and do my nails, or, you know, wax hairy bits, and give me cut my hair and make sure my roots done, or give me a blow dry. And she wouldn't even ask me what I was doing. She just, because I do like take care of my appearance, and I just couldn't care less, and she just made sure that I was maintained. And she didn't charge me for this. She did it completely free of charge.
Wow.
And I'll just eternally great. And that was something for me, looking back now, I'm pleased that she did, because it did just make me feel that bit better.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a lovely little kind of story in itself, isn't it? And I guess, you know, just having that little bit of escapism, maybe, like just to go into the hairdressers and just you know, there's no expectation, there's no, you know, having to go through anything, go over any information. It's just a bit of escapism, I guess.
It was, and that's one of the things that I've always, throughout having both my girls, even when I was on maternity leave and money was tight, I insisted, if my nails aren't painted, it's not me. So I insisted on having my nails done no matter how tight money was, and, you know, I like to have my hair done as well. So it's just something that I've always, no matter how tight my budget is, that is a bit of a priority for me, however shallow it might sound.
Yeah, but I suppose it's tapping into something that, you know, you hold as important, and something that you just really helps for you to, something that you value, I guess, something that you value in life, and maybe identifying with what that is, and then just making sure that you meet that need in some way.
It's a form of self-care, I suppose.
Yeah.
So those were the things that helped me get through those early periods.
And how, I mean, this is a $1 million question. It's a big question, I know, but how did, you know, this loss change well, first of all, how did it change your life?
Well, basically, my plan was to take this unplanned maternity leave, and that was my baby making days over, and I was going to get give my career a kick up the arse, if I'm allowed to say that, and get back on the treadmill of finding work and business. I'd liked having my children, but I'd felt unfulfilled for a few years, and that was my plan. So I'm digressing a bit here, but you know, it's part of the story.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying is it kind of spurred you on in some way to think about other areas of your life, and maybe what was important. And if your career was it, then perhaps that was like you say, the kick up the bum that you needed.
Yeah, to do it. And then, well, as you know, I about 6 or 7 weeks after Charlotte's death, I discovered that I was pregnant again, which was completely unplanned. I kind of knew straight away that I did want to have more children, but it was just not on my radar. And Jack turned 1 yesterday, actually, so a little rainbow boy. But then, as I said to you, that kind of put pressure on me to find myself pregnant and out of work. It put pressure on me to find clients and get my business up and running before that became an issue, because as much as people can't discriminate against pregnant women, really is a business really going to hire somebody who's 7 months pregnant to do a 3-month contract of their content management? They're not, and that's completely sensible, and they're well within the rights to do that. So I knew that I had to get some business and some clients under my belt before my pregnancy showed. So I bid for, I got from a contact, I got kind of the nod that a really big client were looking for somebody to manage their, content manager, so their social media and blog for them. And I got that word through a content to say. And I just thought, you know what? I've never done anything this big before. I've never done anything that corporate, but what's the worst that can happen? So I put a bid in for it, and I got it. And it was part of First Group PLC, so a major client. And the 3-month contract ended up being I think it was about 15 in the end. They even let me have a few weeks off to give birth, which is very kind of them. So as well as having this kind of full-time contract with them, I started taking on the social media and marketing of a few more kind of smaller local businesses to me, which is where my passion is, really helping them rather than the big corporates. But it kind of just grew momentum, and I look back now, and my first day at First Group was 2 days after what should have been Charlotte's first birthday, which was a horrendous day for us all. I was 3 months pregnant, feeling extremely nauseous with it, and I was grieving, and it was only 4 months since I'd lost my baby. And I walked into this big office near Waterloo in London and just got on with it, and continued to get on with it, really.
I know you don't like the word resilience, but this is what it kind of speaks to me of. I mean, there's a quote, isn't there? There's something about you don't know how strong you are until you basically have no choice but to be strong, and to kind of just find that strength. And this is what I'm kind of imagining when you're telling me all this, that you just maybe had to draw on some inner strength from somewhere to
I just had to keep going, really. And I think I said, didn't I, when we spoke before, that my daughter Layla, who at the time was 5, was a massive motivation for me, because she lost a sister, and that is absolutely, they say when you lose a sibling, you lose a piece of your heart, and she lost a whole future there with Charlotte. And I didn't want also for her to miss out on financial things, because after having pretty much a year off work, I was not in a very good place financially, because it was an unplanned year off work. So I wanted to give her everything that she wanted, and I worked hard to do that and build my business up, and she was my motivation. And I couldn't just sit at home, and I hate the word moping, but I didn't want to just sit at home and do nothing, because you just sat with your thoughts. And yes, maybe I was distracting myself from my loss, but it was a positive distraction, and it was to build a future. And with regards to, I lost half my children. This is something I say quite often. I lost half my children, but that doesn't mean that my daughter Layla deserved half a mother. I still have to give her everything I can as a mummy. I don't get to just pull the covers on my head and not be her mum. I don't get to do that. And there have been days when I've had to do that and let family take over with her, but that's not what she deserves. She deserves the best, and I'm going to give it to her.
I think that's an absolutely beautiful perspective and way of looking at it. And I think that's very unique, actually, Claire. I do. I really think that's quite unique. I want to ask you as well, how did this, so we talked about how did it change your life? How did it kind of change you? Or do you feel that this whole, what you've been through has actually changed you as a person?
I don't care as much about what people think about me. I mean, obviously, professionally, I like my clients to think I'm doing a good job, But if I just don't care as much. People will judge you on the way that you grieve or the way that you behave, and people will think if they were me that they wouldn't be able to get up and carry on, and they don't know how I can, and you're almost criticised to an extent for being okay. And I don't care. I can often see the eyes on me as I walk through the playground to pick Layla up, and people whispering and things, and I don't give a shit. It's my life, it's my family, and I won't be defined by the death of my daughter. And I don't think that is what she would want either. I don't know what she wanted or what she didn't want because she was a baby, but I know that that's, if someone that I loved, I would want the best for them. And that's, we can't spend the rest of our lives in mourning.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke to Jesse Brizendine in season 1, and his whole thing was about the fact that grief isn't a life sentence and doesn't need to be a life sentence. And I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. Whilst there's a process to go through, and that shouldn't be, you know, time bound for anybody. It's about working through it in your own way, in your own time. But absolutely, equally knowing when there's the point when you perhaps start to become stuck in your grief, or that it starts to, like you say, that loss starts to define who you are and what you do. So I absolutely love that you've said that, and I think that there's a really strong, important message actually for people, that loss doesn't have to define you going forward.
Yeah. I mean, it is, I think with the loss of a child, it is a unique loss, because I will continue to mourn for the rest of my life, but there's a way in which to do that. And we'll always remember, like, there's a plot in our garden. I didn't really like the idea of having a headstone for her, so we've got a plot in our garden, and it's called Charlotte's Garden, and we plant things in there, and like, I think that all little girls who are 2.5 love fairies and unicorns, so we're going to put some fairies and unicorns in there and things. And it's just, we remember her, but we try and do it in a positive way. We talk about her. My elder daughter, she writes letters to her. My son is too little to do anything, but she's very much part of our family still, but she's just no longer with us. And we will always, on her birthday, we will always celebrate, isn't the right word, but remember. So you can't just, I'll never forget, but it does, I would say to anybody in my situation, it does get easier. When people say, when the boyfriend, they have a broken heart, they don't know what a broken heart is. A broken heart is losing your child, and it's, my heart, I would say, is a completely different shape to it used to be, because your heart gets torn to tatters, but you do learn to put those back together. But there'll always be, I saw a picture of a heart after loss, there'll always be a Charlotte-sized hole in my heart now.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Again, you describe things, and so vividly as well, and just so wonderfully for people to be able to, and I'm sure many people will relate to that, what you've just said. And I'm just wondering, just to kind of finish off, whether you've got any sort of, well, I normally ask people, you know, what words of wisdom or words of encouragement have you got for others? But actually, what I'd like to ask you as well is, because this is about losing a child, what would you say to, you know, other mothers out there, but also how you deal with this as a family, like, because that's probably another dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard in the sense, because if you've got other children, they deserve, you can't stop being a parent. Doesn't matter whether you've got 10 children or 1, you're a parent, and so you don't get to stop. But also to give yourself a break. My partner and I was, not cracking up is a bit extreme, but I needed to take some time out towards the end of my pregnancy. I just needed to go and cry and I went away to a cottage for a few days, just hired a cottage and just read and cried and grieved. And it's not that I don't want to do that in front of my my daughter, because she has seen me upset, and it's very important to teach her that it's okay to be sad. But you need to just have a little bit of time to yourself. You do need to stop sometimes, as well as me saying, oh, well, I set up this business and had another baby and carried on and did this, that and the other. I had my bad days, and I still do. I think yesterday I was talking about Jack turning 1, and Charlotte was my sunshine, and when she died the lights went out, and he helped me find the light switch again. But there's still days when the light bulb runs out, and I can't. I all I can see is dark. But I don't want to become bitter. I think that's what I quite often see in bereaved parents, is some form of bitterness, and it is absolutely crap. Why did this happen to us? I used to believe in karma, but we're pretty good people. Never even had a speeding ticket or dealings with the police until the day that Charlotte died. And I don't believe in karma now, because how a beautiful, perfect little baby could just be snatched away in a sleep like that. It's just, it is really unfair, and it'd be really easy to become bitter. And that's what I've tried not to do. I've touched on the way it was dealt with regards to the powers that be, and it was dealt with horrendously. I would also say to anybody that this has happened to, do not wait for help to come to you, because I am still waiting for a grief counselling session that I was offered the day that Charlotte died, nearly 2 years later. So don't rely on help coming to you. You need to help yourself.
Yeah, I definitely think that regardless of your situation and your loss, that reaching out is just so important, and feeling that you can just talk, even if it's just to a trusted friend or, family member, and, obviously always seeking professional help is really helpful. But I think that there are people out there that just go into that kind of loneliness and go into themselves, and perhaps don't feel able to do that.
Particularly men, I think, not to be sexist, but I know it's taken my partner a lot longer to deal with it, because I was expecting Jack again so quickly. He went into the hole. He had to take care of me and make sure that I ate and was looked after, so I could look after Jack. And I think probably when Jack was born, and that was another dramatic story in itself, but when Jack was born, I think it kind of hit him, and he didn't have to look after me anymore as much as he had to help me look after the baby. The enormity of it all hit him. And I would say, as a family unit, what tends to happen is I go through phases where I'm up isn't the right word, but where I'm okay and I'm coping and life's okay. Life's a 5 out of 10 again, because I don't think it will ever be a 10 now, but it's a 5 out of 10. And he's not doing so well, but then we'll swap. And I know what he needs is to be left alone, or to go for a walk, or to go to the pub with his mates, and he knows what I need is to talk about it. It's also, just because I talk about it a lot and he doesn't mean that either of our ways are wrong.
I can totally relate to that in the relationship sense, that there's periods of adjustment, isn't there, for both? And it's knowing, what each other need, and just respecting that, those boundaries. And I mean, I talked a while ago about, not giving people advice and stuff, because I think with the best intent, people go there, don't they, with thinking that they know what somebody else needs, but actually it's just about giving people space to figure out what they need for themselves, and then letting them, honour that in their own way. So I love what you've said there, and I love all of there's quite a lot of tips in there as well, even though it might not have been 1, 2, 3, but actually there was a lot of tips in there. And
also, I just want to add one little thing, which is, don't turn down medication. If you're offered medication to help you sleep, take it, because I couldn't. I refused it initially because your sleep patterns go all over the place. I refused it initially because I was like, I don't need that. I'll be fine. I'll start sleeping eventually. And then I went into a pregnancy where I couldn't sleep, and I think I had about 6 months of unbroken sleep. Broken sleep rather, and then a baby. So I was around about November time this year, I was absolutely frazzled. So don't be afraid to accept things, because you do, in those first few days and weeks when you think that you're okay, you need knocking out, and that pretty much.
I think there's something to be said, isn't there, for, you know, when you're the type of person, and I'm very similar in the sense that I'm very independent, quite strong-minded, etc., like to do things on my own, like to do things for myself, but it's knowing when you need to accept that help. So whether that's in the form of professional counselling, coaching, whether it's in the form of medication, mental health intervention, whatever that looks like for you, it's just knowing when the time is right to just do that and just accept that you need a little bit of help at this stage in your life, and that's absolutely okay.
Exactly. And it's just do whatever it takes, and don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking to me, Claire. The time has just absolutely flown by, and I could talk more about this with you because it is such an important topic. But I really, really appreciate you joining me on the show and talking about this so openly. And as I said, I know there'll be people out there who are really going to benefit. Would it be okay if we shared where people can get hold of you? Maybe somebody might want to reach out. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine. My business page is Sunshine Digital Media. My details are on there, but if anybody wants to get in touch with me directly, my email is Clare, without an I, N for Natalie, Clifford @gmail.com.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Claire.